So we have another 30 minutes or so. So if you want to go ahead, you want to still build up that Aquarius part, you can do it.
Yeah, the
Just take
Aquarius
about
part.
5 or 10 minutes so that we can have a floor open for other questions.
Sure. So yeah. So the idea behind Aquarius is to create this. Hold on. So is to create a game in which when you play the game, you automatically are on the right-hand side of the 7 core shifts. So we all know the 7 core shifts, right? So this is like Climate Healers 101. So we keep talking about this, right? And what we are saying is that, I mean, what I'm claiming is that the current money game automatically does everything on the left-hand side of this. Automatically, those rules of the game are like that. Okay, unless you, and so the only way for us to literally switch the game is to actually build another game, which is the Aquarius game, in which you're automatically doing everything on the right-hand side of this transformation. Okay, and then you can design this Aquarius game so that you can play both games simultaneously. Okay, this allows us to transition from the old to the new. See, just like we can go vegan today in the current game, even though, you know, you're allowed to eat meat, but you're voluntarily relinquishing your human supremacy when we go vegan, right? You're saying, no, even though I know I can eat them, I can kill them, I can do whatever I want with them, I want to show love and kindness to them, to the animals, okay? That's the vegan movement. And by doing that, we see that we are changing the behavior of corporations right now in the current system. We are making corporations come up with vegan options, which they never in the million years would have wanted to do it, right? We are bringing them kicking and screaming to put vegan options on the menu. Okay, so we have done that. So the same way with the Aquarius game, we're going to bring corporations kicking and screaming to do everything that's ecologically sound. That's the idea behind the Aquarius game. Because Aquarius game, everything on the right-hand side is automatically coded. So he's asked, so how is it coded? Well, the way it is coded, oops. Hold on a second. Previous. All right. So equality is coded into it. What does that mean? If you open your Aquarius account, you should see the same flow. No matter where you are in the world, no matter where, you know, who you are, what age you are, what, you know, you are alive, you get an Aquarius account in which the same flow rate is what coming into your heart, the heart of your account. Okay. So that gives us a sense of equality, that it's built in. And in the Aquarius game, all money flows from the bottom up. So the only source of money is individuals. There's no other source. There's no bank that's creating money, none of that stuff, okay? Unlike the old game. So the old game, the current game, all money flows from the top down. Here it flows from the bottom up. You still have hierarchies, okay? Basically, there's a community chest. So the community chest, you can say, I belong to Tempe community. So everyone who belongs to Tempe community will be sending some of their Aquarius tokens into the Tempe community chest. Okay. And some of that tokens that fall into the heart are automatically going to go into your pocket. That's your universal basic income. So you can just sit there and watch TV all day long, and you will have enough tokens in your pocket to survive. That's the idea. But if you don't do anything, I mean, but if you start doing acts of compassion, helping other people, helping the animals, helping the earth, you can tap into your heart for doing that. Okay? Now, what do these tokens mean? These tokens are a measure of the ecological footprint of humanity. It's a measure of the ecological footprint of the product. Okay? So through these tokens, we are measuring our ecological footprint of all humanity put together, and making sure that we don't exceed the limits. Okay, so it is basically distributed evenly to everybody, and each token is a multi-dimensional vector. So it represents your land use footprint, your water footprint, your CO2 footprint, you name it, right? All of the ecological footprint, all the 9 planetary boundaries have an equivalent footprint allowance. And so then you can start trading between them. You can say, I have plenty of CO2 footprint, but I need more water footprint. So I'll sell my CO2 footprint to get water footprint from somebody else. So you can create a market of exchange around these footprints. The overall idea is to make sure that all of us, when we play this game, we will never exceed the ecological footprint allowance of the planet. Okay? And of course, this is going to keep changing year by year because this is going to be scientifically based on the current state of the planet, whatever that is. This is why this game has to be a game of openness. It has to be an open source game. There can be no private property in the game. Okay. So as I said, I mean, everyone earns money in Aquarius. So you can use what's in your heart by doing acts of compassion. And you may also get from the community some Aquarius tokens, because whatever the community gets, the community is distributing it around, right? The community has exactly the same architecture of the Aquarius account as the individual. So it gets a whole bunch flowing into its heart. Some of it goes into its pocket that it can use automatically. And if it does things of, of service, it can access what's in the heart. And some of it goes to its community. So Tempe may be contributing to Arizona. Who knows how we are going to organize ourselves in the future? Shelley was saying that we may be organizing ourselves in terms of ecosystems. So maybe the Tempe belongs to the Sonoran Desert ecology. And that's where the money is going. Aquarius tokens are going, okay? So we'll leave that. I'm just talking about the architecture of it right now. So it has to be open source, economy and ecology. And the way it is designed, okay, they're fundamentally designed to promote everything on the right-hand side of our 7 core shifts. So I see Aquarius as an offering from us to the world, saying, hey, you like the 7 core shifts? Here is a way to implement it. You don't want it? Fine, figure out some other way to do it. But this is what we want. Ultimately, we need to do this so that people lead their ordinary lives and the planet thrives. So what will happen if people play the Aquarius game today? When they play the Aquarius game today, they will say, so for each product, we are going to measure the ecological footprint of the product. Okay, that's one of the things we need to do in the Aquarius system. We need to measure the ecological footprint of the product based on its packaging and its, origin, place of origin, and so on. So it has a certain CO2 footprint, a certain, water footprint, a land use footprint, and so on. And when we play Aquarius, we are asking you to make sure that when you buy a product, scan it with the Aquarius app and make sure that you do have the allowance in your account to buy the product. So what does that do? It then starts getting you to favor products that have the least ecological footprint. Okay? Because you're looking at the Aquarius cost in addition to the dollar cost. Okay? Mm-hmm. So then slowly corporations are going to get the message. If you put lots of packaging, people are not buying. These so-called Aquarians are not buying. Just like the vegans are not buying when you keep making animal products, right? So eventually they get it through their head that they need to. To me, corporations are like really, they're like machines, right? So we need to kind of figure out how to get them to do what we want, not let them tell us what we need, right? Turn things around.
So, Sailesh, this is very interesting introduction to Aquarius.
Yeah.
So from that, let's again open the round for questions or comments, or let's just have some kind of a flow. So, for example, the Aquarius discussion, you mentioned something about open source, economy, and ecology. So that's interesting. Other than that, you mentioned something about token, community token. So, for example, there are some questions that comes to my head, and I wanted to throw it out there. So for I live in an HOA community.
Mhm.
So the way the Chandler is organized, it's like a grid
Mhm.
pattern where the road is there, and then there is housing residents within a 1 mile boxes, 1 mile super blocks. So over there, the sense of community really doesn't exist in HOA community. We are HOA community, but the sense of community doesn't exist. So, and when we are in such a country where such a kind of a level of isolation or non-community exist, like
Mhm.
non-sense of community exists, how do we like have these shifts? How do we, because we don't even talk to our neighbors right now, we don't even know our
Right.
neighbors. So does anyone want to chime in, like what is happening, and want to take the conversation further?
Yeah, I think in the future there may be more virtual communities, not necessarily your local people, but there will be a local component too, right? Because you have common roads that you need to take care of. You have garbage that you need to take care of, or you have to figure out how to do recycling. All those things are going to be more of a local function. But there may be more virtual communities. I mean, these are all the conversations we need to be having, right? So the idea behind the conversation website or the conversations platform is to have like, a room for Vegan World 2026. And within that, a room for Aquarius that people can come and talk about these things. And it may be open 24/7, depending on how many, Zoom licenses we have. We could just say, we're going to be talking about Aquarius there and continuously. And then we'll go on base camp and we do whatever work we need to do and then come back and have another conversation. So we can schedule different conversations
Right.
on the same Trello board.
Yep. I think even Shankar wanted to ask or say
Hmm.
something.
Uh, yes, I just want to add the Swadeshi concept, uh, like especially the Indian local villages.
Hmm.
And I have seen here in the community too, they always bring an event and people get together. That event always brings some like minds together. Like and the village is the best example. For a season, they will have a festivity and they put shops. Then they will have some kind of a art event, some kind of a performance event, and some kind of a ritual, some kind of initiation of a new harvest something. Always there'll be, and one thing, if there's always
We lost you.
I think can you see?
You're very faint.
Yeah, I know. I think I got a call, another call. Okay. Is it okay now?
No, it's still faint.
Very faint.
So is it better?
You will have to do better, louder.
Okay, okay, yeah. I'll come closer. So
You can, yeah.
okay, now it's back. Yes.
Now you're back. Yeah.
Yes. So here what happens is at the time there is always bringing people together. Plus there is a local consumption. Local helped or somebody's. I'm not saying somebody's getting rich. Somebody's needs things are shared in the way of, for example, we can share in terms of. Give me 1 second. We can share.
Yeah.
We invite guests to the house and we share things.
Right.
Like so, always goes in a bilateral way. Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting a call. When I get a call, it kind of bypasses or goes beyond the. My
I see.
apologies. I'm good.
Okay. Oh, well, actually, you brought up very good points, like about the village community, about events bringing people together, and local consumption, which is very interesting to help form ideas. Does anyone else have any comments, questions, concerns?
I have a question. Sailesh, you were talking about these different types of ecological footprints in your, they were following sort of these 9 categories of the 9 planetary boundaries. And I think one challenge will be measuring so many different products on so many different dimensions. And so have you considered perhaps that we work up to the 9, that we start with perhaps 1 or 2, and those 1 or 2 are the ones we really need to focus on right now?
Yep, absolutely. That's the way I see it evolving. Start with maybe CO2 footprint or water footprint, those things that we already are measuring quite a bit of, and start populating the database with some of these vectors, right?
Yeah.
Because so I see it as an evolving app, okay?
Yeah.
An evolving database. As time goes by, we'll be adding more and more sophistication to it. Because ultimately, as engineers, right? I mean, I see civilization as an engineering project. In addition to being a cultural project and a social project and so on, it is an engineering project too. So the job of the engineering aspect of this project, it is to make sure that people get enough to eat, people get enough, good water to drink, animals have water to drink. So literally creating an environment on the planet that's thriving for all life. That's the job of this engineer, the engineering project, right? And so as part of that, I know that we need to measure our ecological footprint, okay? And make sure that we are within boundaries. And of course, we need to also measure our social needs and make sure that everyone meets that, right? Everyone gets what they need. That's the lower part of the donut economy that Kate Raworth talks about. So that's a different story altogether. So that's where politics comes in, culture comes in, social comes in, where people say, hey, those in America, those in Canada need a little bit more ecological footprint because they're in a cold climate compared to Africa. So that's where, we at a global level are going to get together and say, maybe take some of, because Africa will have lots of kids, they will have lots and lots of ecological footprint allowance coming to them, which they might not be using so much. So they can then donate some of that to America or to Canada or whatever, right? So those are all the things that need to happen at a larger level. So I'm just saying, let's start playing the game. Let's create the game and start playing the game and get more and more people interested in the game. So when we do that, then you get corporations to change their behavior, right? So ultimately, as more and more people start playing the game, they will all say, hey, I prefer this game, especially when you go to the poor people. So this is why I want to go to the people who are enrolling in K-Mama. So then I know that they're real, because we're giving them food and saying, hey, would you like to join this? This is the idea behind the whole thing. So we have to educate them about climate healers and what we are doing with Aquarius and get them to join the Aquarius app. Okay. So that's the idea, because they will take to it quickly.
Right. So, Sailesh, sorry for interjecting, but the thing is, I'm trying to have some kind of a flow. So, for example, you mentioned something about this Aquarius as an app, but we have to play this game, and what this game is about climate, participating in positively in the climate story at a very high level. This is what we are trying to achieve. And this is just like one of the apps in series of apps. For example, K-Mama, you mentioned this. So it's more like an ecosystem that you're trying to create of tools for these climate healers who are trying to build a story and the economy that they need to support and they need to build. So for example, at one end, you are trying to talk about service. We are talking about service through K-Mama, trying to encourage those values. And in another side, we are encouraging values of being mindful of what my footprint is, and you are working on practical tools for that. For example, one tool is about measuring a product, and there's some number game, along with giving some kind of a token for people without doing something for it, or maybe have to do something for it, and then they get tokens. So some kind of a gamification is happening, kind of like trying to inspire those positive values. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments, or how we can build this further? Because the reason is we are going to be running out of time soon, and we need to open up the floor for conversation on what do they want to see from these series, because this is the second time we are meeting as a group. So how do they want to go ahead continuing these conversations?
I think my question, yeah, so it's good lead in or good framing. And Keith, I think my question is around the transaction.
Mhm.
So when people are at the point of sale, which is going to be increasingly more and more virtual,
Mhm.
how can you be there? You know, how do we incorporate this somehow so that at the time of point of sale, it's some, you know, we're getting that transaction record for your Aquarius.
Yeah. So it's basically, initially it will be all entirely on the honor system, Aquarius. This is not about transactions. This is about saying you can figure out that when you relinquish your privileges, or when you gain these new privileges, because that's what the equality will be, right? In the Aquarius system, are you able to live a great life or no, right? So then you can, so you scan the product. It's not, no one's going to watch you. You scan the product and it automatically deducts from your Aquarius account, or it will tell you you don't have enough in your account to buy this product. If you want, you can go and do some act of compassion, and you can gain more Aquarius points. So I see, I mean, Ankit put it nicely. You know, these are an ecosystem of apps we are creating under Climate Healers for different aspects of this positive behavior that we need to be modeling in the future, right? I see United in Heart app as part of this too. The same ecosystem of apps we are creating, right? And so there are different gamifications that we do for each one, but ultimately Aquarius to me is where we are actually measuring our ecological footprint and making sure that we are within limits. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like a necessity for us. We need to do that as humanity.
Is it possible for it to be on a 1 month lag where you're getting your transactions through credit card? You know, you have some type of credit card dump at the end of the month, and then you have, but then actually that doesn't work because even within the purchase, you have to get into each
the details.
Product purchased.
Yeah. Details, yeah. So this is why, you know, we start with certain simple rules. Aquarius is only going to work for vegan products. Okay? We're not interested in measuring the footprint of non-vegan products, for sure. Okay. So we'll only have to look at the vegan NAICS code, and you know, based on that, we will come up with our ecological footprint. So then we can start talking to vegan businesses and saying, hey, can you incorporate these footprints in your product? So when people scan, they'll get that, right? So there's a lot of education, marketing that needs to be done to these businesses.
Right. So what I gather from this is that there are two ways this conversation can go further if you want to continue. One is just talking about the concept and sticking to the ecosystem of apps where we are trying to have some positive values towards the climate story, larger picture. We can go in that direction and continue using these examples. Or we can go into the technical designs of it, like, okay, how do we gamify it? How would it look? How would it feel? How the user will feel? And we can have a very technical conversation on a particular app. So there are two ways this can end. But right now we don't have the time for either of the stories. So we'll try to wrap it up. So firstly, this is a second time I'm seeing many familiar faces who joined us. So what do they think about this format of a monthly meeting, having these discussions, inviting someone to set tone? What are their thoughts? What are they gaining out of it, and what do they want? And we'll try to wrap it up in a few minutes. So someone want to share?
See, personally, I feel a sense of urgency right now.
Me too.
And I don't think we can wait a month. You know, that's the kind of urgency I feel right now. Okay, so I'm willing to put every Monday. I'm willing to do because I think Aquarius is a very important part of the story. for climate healers. Okay, so it's a very important part of realizing our vision for climate healers. Okay? So I don't mind doing this once a week. We need to get Santiago and Pareen, the modeling group, to come on board.
So
Sorry, Danny, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I don't know, you know, my experience has been in the old economy pretty thorough about the old money game. And I can see myself having a function in trying to spread the word, market it, recruit people. As far as this and Basecamp and climate healers and this room in particular, do you need more people to come into the fold at this level? And if so, would you let me know what kinds of people you'd like to come in here? And if I have any resources, I'll run them by you. But I'm with Sailesh. I'm like, it's go time. Let's start laying the seeds, you know, the groundwork now.
Right. So that's actually a very good question, Danny. I think you can touch base with Sailesh, and Sailesh will follow up with you on how to engage on a bigger movement part. But this group, what we are trying to do over here is just talk about Aquarius. And what Aquarius, as Sailesh was pointing out, it's like more like an ecosystem of apps or tools that we have to create to enable this new economy. So we are focused on these kind of a conversation in this group. And Sailesh, just to go back to that Pareen and Santiago and the group that they are trying to deal, they are more trying to deal with a very academic, theory-based, which we will need to support the apps and the higher level. So that will be a separate tone. Who wants to like go into mathematical modeling or those detailed discussions that they want to do, we can set that tone. Whereas over here, does anyone have any feedback on how this is working for them? Because, for example, Sailesh told clearly he feels the urgency, he wants this more often, but at the same time we understand, Sailesh, there is a lot of things happening that you have to be involved in, and you're doing that. And for us also, we are all background. So I would say we can take it slow. Let's see how the group evolves, and then we can ramp it up in this particular group setting. But any feedback, anyone?
I think that the feedback and, you know, the idea generation and the iteration has to be faster. And I don't know if this is the meeting for that, but things have to happen, I agree, faster. And I think we're feeling the urgency, but I'm not sure that it's necessarily this meeting, but there has to be faster iteration cycles for you, Sailesh, because your framework, you have to be able to start working on laying that framework down, and we haven't quite figured out what that is, you know, that should be worked on. I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah, I would suggest that we arrange to meet next week, same time. And meanwhile, let's contact Pareen and because their work is very important too. You know, Pareen and Santiago, their work modeling it is very important because they're going to give us the theoretical underpinning for why this is going to work or not. Right?
So Sailesh, am I hearing like this is more like an operational meeting where we are trying to build stuff and we are trying to get the team together and start working on stuff, or are we still keeping it high level study, talk about ideas, talk about flows, and not go into building and talking about tasks? The reason why I want to separate it so that we understand that right now we are just meeting for the second time. I don't want to put everyone, I understand that there is urgency, we need to do it, and that's why we are here. But at the same time, we need to be careful that we don't lose the engagement that we've already got. So we keep the momentum of 1 month for this high level study discussion, whereas we can meet again next week with operational. Now we can have an operational meeting for Aquarius. We can propose a new set of format where operational talk about specifics and talk about details and task. If you want to go to that level, we can go to that level. So you understand, we can create separate platforms and stick with the idea behind that platform for that particular reason and not confuse everyone when we start talking details. That's why I want to just make sure that we are organized as we go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately I have another meeting I need to get to. It started 2 minutes ago. So
yep. So I think we'll conclude this call. So at this present moment, we'll just keep 1 month frequency of the study group. And for that another operational, Shailesh, I think we can work with Ray and see if we can put it on the calendar and see who can join from the Aquarius study group that we have so far, to see who can join and start taking operational decisions and details.
Right. Yeah. So I have some ideas about the operational details, and so we need to talk about that. Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good.
Absolutely.
All right.
All
then.
right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a good
you.
day, and see you next month.
Thank you, Danny.
First
I'll be in
Monday.
touch with you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.